Hello and welcome back to my channel, Chess Captures Threats, and in today's opening we'll be going over the Nimzo-Indian. So this is the fourth opening of the playlist, Learn the Openings. So I think the last one was the Italian, so because we've gone a white, black, white, so we're going to go for a black opening now. So the Nimzo-Indian. Obviously the name Nimzo-Indian comes from a little bit of like the Indian, which would be the G6 idea, but instead we are doing it a little bit different in the fact that we're not putting the bishop this way, we're going to pin. So the moves are d4, then knight f6, so straight away we are putting pressure on the centre with a piece, not a pawn. You would expect d5, any other moves, but knight f6 this time allows us to maybe play this Indian type thing, but instead after c4, so obviously here white is playing the Queen's Gambit, so we play e6. So this move, it does limit this bishop, but in the long run we are going to Frenchetto this, or even put this to a6. So this does also put pressure on the centre as well against this c4 pawn. They're now going to move knight f3, or knight c3 should I say, and then we are going to go bishop to b4. So that is the first three moves. Now there is a few ideas. So the black ideas: control of e4. Now this is because we are putting a pin, so we have this square with our knight for now, and soon when we look to play d5, we are obviously, just to show you here, d5 puts even more pressure, as this looks a little bit now like a Queen's Gambit declined. So there is that. So also what we can do here is follow up stuff with playing c5. c5, like in the French, this is a key move in the Nimzo. You'll see this a lot, and there is many reasons to this. So obviously c5 and d5 are very strong because of the protection of this pawn. So obviously with c5, this is now another opening in this style called the Benoni. Now the Benoni is a very tactical game where they push here most of the time, and it's very weird. So you've got to be careful. If you want that sort of tactical game, do it, but it's a very, very difficult to, this pawn can become very good. So d5 also plays a more classical and just solid game if you want to just develop, and also in the long run we want to be playing b6 and even bishop a6. So not to b6 because to b7 should I say, because when we move to d5 we're just going to be, our bishop's going to be stuck and there's nothing to do there. Now the key thing here is after these three moves, what we now have is kind of what will happen most of the time if we get this position, and that will be the double pawns for white. So as we've gone over, I think in previous episode when we was doing some of the middle game or opening stuff on the chess guide, when we used this opening, so hopefully you can remember this sort of position from that. If they try and attack you here, what we can do is actually capture. So we don't really want to move, we definitely don't want to move back here because we actually lose the pawn because we're actually trapped. So you've got to be careful with that. So most of the time here we'd actually capture, and obviously they do not want to put their bishop in the way, so they have to capture back. And this is where c5 is a very good move, I would say here, because this really gives us they can't capture again. I would say this is a very, very bad move here because we're able to play Queen a5. So put a nice fork on both of these. If they try and protect with this queen move, trying to protect both, we're able to play the knight out. So double pawns, there is a lot we can do here. Most of the time they won't take here, so they'll just play some more solid lines like this. We do not want to capture back because we undouble pawn them and there was no point in our little process. We can play d5. but when we want to, the issue here is we've got to make sure we time it right with when we play b6, because after we play b6, you know, this capture kind of, it's all right for us, but it just looks a little bit off center now with this bishop. So maybe we capture first soon. If we had our knight in play, maybe then we'd be able to get our bishop out. So we've just got to time right around what we want to do. So there is also other moves here as well after capture, where we can get the knight to a5 as well, putting pressure on this pawn, and down here there's also that. So there we go. Now, also the last idea for black is the kingside activity. So there is, most of the time, soon there will be pushes to, if we just play a few moves here, there will be some ideas soon, if we move the knight back here, of f5, but also knight e4. So this obviously a very central move. I guess this is when we want this to be, when something like this bishop isn't attacking it, because we don't want to be double pawned, and we're able to obviously here put pressure on the double pawned piece there, and we're also attacking a very weak square of f2. But I think another key thing here is also this f5 push, because even when we castle, we have a nice little protection here. Okay, now we've gone over black's ideas. Hopefully you understand. It's a very nice opening for black. It's very usable and everything. Now, so the bishop pair. So obviously, if when we do bishop takes c3, it is now, they have two bishops and a knight versus our knight and two knights and a bishop. So obviously they're going to try and keep these bishops till late on in the game, because two bishops in an endgame is very strong. So when you're black, you might want to try and solve that off, but as white, you're going to be, you know, using that for your advantage. Also, we're going to be using for white lines of f3 and e4 sort of thing. That will be very strong in the long run as well. So you're able to get that, obviously not in this position, but maybe if we if they try French chatting, then this e4 move obviously very strong. If they're able to get even just these two pawns, or even these four, because obviously with the Queen's Gambit they played, that's very strong. Now, so also white sometimes can have structural weakness, obviously using the double pawns, so this can give the space for the bishop a little bit more. Obviously now we have both of these lines with the white bishop. Obviously the black bishop might be a little bit more blocked in, but after it gets out of here, it's fine. So now that is the Nimzo-Indian. Hopefully you understand the ideas. In the long run, we want that sort of, you know, this double pawn for white, the double pawn that white has, black wants to capitalise on it, so moves like c5, you know, and we want to castle early, you know, we just want to play solid while also having that sort of attack, you know, quite quietly doing it. So, you know, soon, just playing a few moves just to get into the middle game, just to show you what it might be like. And this is the sort of idea. Maybe the queen should be out here and their queen will be there, to be fair. But this is the sort of idea you'd want. You know, it's quite a lot like the Queen's Gambit, just this double pawn, which could be good for white as well in some cases with this here, having this open file. So, here is that. So, that is all for today. Hopefully you enjoyed the Nimzo-Indian. So, thank you and bye-bye.